Hey, it's me, Big P, and I wanted to do a more definitive video serving as a guide for the Ball Lightning Inquisitor. It's given me pretty much no trouble at all completing basically everything except the Feared within about a week of gameplay. Did the entire Atlas, got everything down, all the Watchstones, and all that good stuff. And I wanted to, yeah, just go over what I did, how you can maybe emulate the sort of success that I had, and why you might want to try Ball Lightning over things like Spark or any other self-cast, really. I mean, Inquisitor's probably in a fantastic spot right now. It's gone from the, kind of like a niche, weird ascendancy to the second most played, actually. I mean, a large part of that is due to Pox's RF and the popularity of that. Shouts to Pox. That's a great build as well. But if you want a more traditional caster, honestly, there's a number of spells you could do it with, but I'm going to explain Ball Lightning, how I did it. And we're going to start off just running a map with the boss in it. Hopefully I don't die, because I would like one more level. It should be okay. Let's Maven it, why not? We're going to start with just the map showcase, and then I'll get into the skill gem links and exactly why I made... There's a lot of choices you can make with a build like this, because, well, I mean, there's options. You have options. It's pretty flexible. And, there's still things that I could work out to push it even further. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy with how it all turned out. It's got it's a nice balance between a good mapper and a good single target damage. Much like the rolling magma Inquisitor I rolled last league, there were technically no changes made to character balance in this league, but the Arch Nemesis modifiers going chord certainly affected some builds more than others. Not so much the Inquisitor, though. And we'll get into that when we talk about things like damage conversion and, well, just really elemental ailments and stuff like that. It's kind of scary, but hopefully we'll be okay. It's not a very tanky build. This is probably the least tanky Inquisitor I've done in a while. But again, there are options you can do regarding that. Like, for example, you don't have to go low life, run righteous fire, things that I'm doing. And you can actually just take advantage of the full effective HP pool that you'd have here. But I think we're at a point, at least when it comes to things like legions, rare monsters, the best defense rather, is a good offense. See, like, these guys dying in a hit or two means that we don't really have to worry about being so defensive. It's, And not to mention that Ball Lightning, it's a slow projectile, but it's a projectile. Nice, get an emblem for our troubles. And, a lot of... I mean, an RF Inquisitor obviously is going to be a lot tankier than this. Not to mention, of course, you can go for melding of the flesh and get like ridiculous amounts of all res. We're only at 76 all res, just a modest +1 on the tree. Nothing insane. Again, I kind of wanted to do this build guide at a level that you could probably replicate in a league start scenario. Because even though I might have some gear pieces that are a couple X here and there, like a 6-link chest piece and stuff like that, it was performing fine on a 5-link, and I actually have snapshots of the build after the first couple days. If you'd like to see those on the channel, be sure to give those a look if you want to see more. This is a pretty finalized endgame setup where you'll have a couple choices to make, but let's put a portal here just in case. Yeah, it's just sort of a fire and forget playstyle. The Ball Lightning with the extra projectile just has a fantastic bit of coverage that takes out even rare mobs in basically one cast. Maybe a second cast is necessary for, the tankier mobs and stuff like that. Actually, the biggest pain point in our build in terms of rare mob modifiers that we're looking at for is Assassin. It used to be like Stormweaver and honestly the ones that make the lightning, whatever, anything that has lightning resistance or lightning damage stuff. Like, I don't know what they're called. Me and my friends are calling them the lightning dildos and the lightning men that show up. They're pretty annoying because ball lightning does hit multiple times. Those proc multiple times. So you're spawning a lot of them. It's pretty insane to be able to dodge it. And again, we're not like super tanky, anything crazy. I don't really need Apex Sentinels. I just realized we did this Elder, so we get to skip one of my least favorite bosses. Actually, it's worth noting that chaos damage is actually... We're trying to get a bit of chaos resistance. We could get a bit more on the tree over... Where is it? Here. If I wanted to tank up more. I mean, we might need to, because we're not really wanting for damage now. Now we're just kind of wanting to be more consistent in terms of tankiness. Why is there a Harbinger here? Excuse me, sir. Okay, that's a little awkward. So it's Maven. We're going to need to dodge that. We don't have a fantastic effective hit pool. We're definitely cutting it down a decent bit by going for both Righteous Fire and Low Life. Like, actually Low Life on the Pain Attunement, rather, on the tree. We also don't have our curse set up because I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between whether... Oh, no, there it is. I guess it's on a cast when damage taken, but it does feel inconsistent at times. We're going to take a big hit there. Okay, no. Yeah, you can see the DPS is pretty great once you're just able to just to get your DPS down. And we do have reduced shock effect on the tree. I was kind of lazy about my flasks all the way up until now. But, yeah, you don't really need to be. God damn it. Yeah, I was able to do... I failed the Maven. I bricked 2 Mavens. I think I have that on a VOD on my stream if you want to see the Maven fights. I had a checklist of goals I wanted to do for the build, and we did all of them except the Feared, but I didn't really expect to do the Feared on a build like this, you know. But yeah, damage feels pretty great at this point. I don't know what the tooltip is, but like you can't really... I mean, don't ever base your damage off tooltip DPS, but especially for something like Ball Lightning. We'll get into the mechanics of how that works at the end. But yeah, that's the build right now. Let's go over the gem links, starting with the main skill itself, Ball Lightning. A Ball Lightning gem, I'm pretty sure I bought a 2120 Ball Lightning for like 5 chaos. They're like 10 chaos now. It's the sort of thing that's really, you know, it's kind of an underused skill that not a lot of people are going to be playing for. So you can probably scoop up a gem or just, you know, corrupt one yourself. You know, the last gem level or 2 really makes a difference. And then, of course, when you're going to plus gem levels is important for us to scale. So we have a level 24 one here. It's pretty good. If we could get an Ashes of the Stars, we'd use a Divergent one that has a chance for them to be supercharged, which has double damage and double whatever. We're not doing that. Inspiration helps because it's a crit gem, gives you more crit chance, and reduces the mana cost. You're going to have to work on mana costs while you're leveling, balancing out a clarity. You know, just kind of take it in, you know, see what you can get away with spamming. You basically want to be able to spam it constantly, you know. You don't ever want to be in a situation where, you know, you can blink in and then you also pop Orb of Storms, but then you don't have enough mana. Mana regen is going to be important. However, with my current setup, and probably with most setups, you'll be able to fit a fairly substantial clarity in, and it won't be an issue. But Inspiration helps either way. It's a great damage gem, great crit gem. We get high levels because it's a crit gem. We're getting the +3 mastery, so yeah. Increased critical strikes. I believe I got this 21. Yeah, pretty lucky there. How much is that? That's probably... That's like an X right there, but again, that's just the base crit. Ball Lightning actually only has a 5% base crit chance, which isn't fantastic, so you really will need this, particularly when you go into crit. Spell Echo feels good once you have enough cast speed. You might want to level with Pinpoint or something like that, because we are getting an extra projectile from the Helm enchant, which obviously you won't start out with. So pinpoint was kind of cool, and maybe even just faster casting instead of things like critical damage in the link, because you know, you're not actually, you level as elemental overload for a vast majority of the time until you get your Uber Lab to go to Inevitable Judgment. That's when the build really turns a corner and just shreds stuff. And then the last one is slower projectiles. This one is paired with ball lightning perfectly. Basically, the way it works is that ball lightning, as it passes over, ticks for damage in an area of effect. So if you took this out, you get fewer ticks of damage. Obviously, you get better coverage, but it's not worth it. The slower projectiles gem has a huge more multiplier on it, and the less projectile speed ends up not being that big of an issue. Even with a little bit of projectile speed, because we are anointing Fury Bolts here, just because it helps a little. You know, you don't want you know, your projectiles to just stay in front of you and not move at all. Giving it a bit of coverage allows you to, you know, cover your ass in maps and stuff like that and just shoot down a hall. It's a really fire and forget playstyle, as you saw on that map. That's pretty good. And strength ends up being crit because it's the lower of the two for Inquisitor. So yeah, that's the 6th link. Again, you might want to mess around while you're leveling. It might be a little different. You don't need the crit, and especially because you'll be leveling as elemental overload. So maybe just use like slower proj, faster casting, and pinpoint. Maybe spell echo as well in there. You can still use inspiration to help with mana costs, because you probably will get there's a lot of cast speed on the tree. On like, you get it in here, you get it here, you get it here. And where else? We're staying in precision here. And then you really will try and prioritize cast speed on your weapons where you can, just to make the build feel smooth. Because you don't want to be standing there, you know, spell echoing out, you know. It works like old multi-strike where it locks you down for the 2 repeats. So you don't want to be, you know, just standing there and getting hit. Let's go for the sister spell. Let's go over the links for Orb of Storms. Orb of Storms is fantastic. Just point of utility and damage for a build like this. I used it in my Crackling Lance Inquisitor, which is very similar to this. And yeah, it's kind of does everything you'd want. For me personally, it's doing a lot of utility. I like to do things like Ice Bite and Power Charge on critical, just to get both Frenzy and Power Charges while you're mapping. And we're also using this to proc Onslaught. If you get Onslaught from another source, like if you want it on your flasks, or there's a number of other ways to get Onslaught, but this would probably be the best leveling setup. And even Ice Bite you can kind of use before you get a Call of the Brotherhood to convert damage to cold. You can still get a lot of frenzies if you are critting, or just sometimes, you know, if you do it in a trash mob, it'll give you some frenzies are really nice to have. Again, you know, more cast speed, the better. But yeah, you could replace this with Calling Strike, probably be in a finalized setup. Probably should do that. You can also, if you get a really nice chess piece that gets like Frenzy on hit, then you can drop the Ice Bite for Call there. I mean, if you go for a staff, you can go for a 6th link Orb of Storms, which could have, you know, even more damage, even more utility. It's a fantastic spell, and it does damage based on modifiers to cast speed. And yeah, basically it's just a way to double dip on all the casts that you're doing when you're doing full DPS, as well as, you know, I mean, a good point of being Onslaught up on bosses is because you get a chance to grant it when you hit a unique enemy and stuff like that, and you're doing tons of hits per second. Actually, let's go over the cast per second. Yeah, 4.33. Again, you're going to have to work as you're working towards the build, you know, the mana per second that you're spending versus, you know, how much you're regenerating. You're going to have to work that out. Mine is in a very flexible spot. I could fit another aura in on either my life or maybe adjust some of the stuff that I'm using. But yeah, let's go over that. I guess we'll go over the actual auras that I'm using. So the most important one would probably be Zealotry. We're a crit build. This gives you increased spell crit damage, increased spell crit chance, and more spell damage, which is fantastic. I prefer this to like stacking Heralds for Ball Lightning, because the effectiveness of added damage is only 60% compared to, well, for example, Rolling Magma last league was like 260% effectiveness of added damage. So flat damage is much better. on those rather than ball lightning. It has plenty of damage on the skill gem itself, so you just kind of boost that. Um, to be fair, the effectiveness, because of the way that the projectile ticks of damage work, it's more like 120, 180% because it's, each flat, but whatever. I prefer to scale it with things like zealotry and, of course, precision, things like that just bring up your base crit chance. Critting is very important. We'll go after that kind of when we talk about the skill tree and the ascendancy, and like converting half your damage to cold, things like that. But yeah, zealotry also just makes a lot of consecrated ground. You will be making consecrated ground whenever you stand still for a cast, and then those effects linger on you. But it's actually even better to have it all over the place, procced on any hit. Because it increases damage taken by enemies, and yeah, it just provides more coverage for that, because you're not going to be next to everything that you're hitting. If you shoot into a pack and you get the chance to proc the hit on the many hits that each of your balls are doing, then it's it's going to spread it out, and the consecrated ground will be all over. Oh, D&D zone. So yeah, petrified blood. I guess we'll go into the low life setup. So once I went into Pain Attunement, which is 30% more spell damage when on low life. I'm pretty lucky with its 21 Arrogance, which is like over an X right now. You don't need a 21. As you can see, you have a lot of space to do whatever you want. I could probably fit the Petrified Blood in there instead. But right now all I'm doing is Clarity, Precision, and Vitality, all at max level. Because we're using all of them. Vitality, as Inquisitor, Pious Path lets your life regen also apply to your ES regen, which is fantastic. Precision increases critical strike chance, which, again, we're a crit build, we need that. And Clarity, you can kind of mess with this as much as you need. I just leveled it all the way to 20 because we have enough. Could probably, I don't even know, we can't do without it. See, then you start getting down. So maybe a lower level Clarity, especially if you're only reserving mana, which you probably will be. You won't be into this unless you're like done leveling and don't mind taking some deaths here or there, because it will affect your survivability, both in mapping and bossing. But I just kind of wanted to push the damage. That's why I went like 2 daggers instead of a shield, or a staff with some block. Like normally an Inquisitor build I do is a little bit more well-rounded, but yeah. So Petrified Blood helps kind of mitigate the damage and helps you take advantage of regen. I'm not entirely sure how it works, honestly. I'm just a softcore special, and I know that it helps me not die. And then the other, Determination is the other aura we're using, which is just, I mean, we don't even have that much. Our armor's pretty pitiful, even with the flask up. I mean, we're not even breaking 10k. We have some other conditional stuff, but really my gear should be just way better in terms of armor. Like this, I didn't realize the fingerless silk gloves normally have an implicit of spell damage, which is nice. But then I'm like, oh wait, I'm going to be rolling Eldritch Currency on it, which is not done on pretty much any piece. I mean, I guess the flat lightning to spell here is pretty nice. But I'd really prefer an armor base of gloves just to bump up armor, because even with Determination, as you can see, it's not great. And yeah, armor's pretty good to get just a baseline of survivability up in maps, so that normal attacks aren't just chunking you. So yeah, we run Determination. For movement skill, I'm using Frostblink and Arcane Surge. I went back and forth with a lot of stuff on Frostblink. You kind of have to be aware that I would probably use Flame Dash for a pure bossing setup. If not just because Frostblink is kind of at its best when you're using it aggressively in maps. If you don't know how it works, if you blink into a pack of normal or magic enemies, you get increased cooldown recovery rate, and that's a much higher cooldown recovery rate if it's a rare or unique. So if you do blink onto bosses, it's up again, but there's a lot of dead zones. Actually, I think the last video I did on this channel, you can see a couple of instances where I'm fighting the Minotaur, and there's just like, a lot of downtime, because 2.5 seconds for it to be down, it's kind of long, especially considering like a Flame Dash with 3 or 4 charges. in a row is going to be much more helpful. So yeah, this is one of the choices you can make for a move skill. I mean, hell, use Whirling Blades or Shield Charge if you're using a shield, or Leap Slam. Probably not. You don't have that much attack speed. I'd stick with Flame Dash or Frost Blink, either or. But yeah, actually I need to change it because it's not proccing Arcane Surge on each one. Is it? 28 minutes. Yeah. I need to level this down a bit. Just make it so that it procs. This would be a level 6 gem. I was using things like, what was it? Innervate. Innervate is nice. It just gives you a little buff during mapping if you kill something with the Frost Blink. It's a little bit of flat damage and chance to shock or whatever. But it's not truly necessary. What else? Righteous Fire. So, Righteous Fire I went into when I wanted to go low life, because as you can see, we're not counting as low life right now. So Righteous Fire itself not only provides a damage buff to spells, a fantastic 38% more spell damage. You can see the tooltip. Actually, let's watch right now. So let's see that tooltip DPS go. When I'm going to pop the Righteous Fire, and that's going to be 1 boost, and then the Righteous Fire interacting with Corrupted Soul is going to bring us to low life. That's half life. And that will be another 30% more multiplier to damage. So let's pop that now. We go from 67k to 92k up to 120k on the tooltip. So you can see why I do that. Something that's worth noting is that this might be better as Frost Shield. I've been swapping between this and Frost Shield as something. Righteous Fire is just when I'm doing my red tier maps now, and I don't really care about a death here or there. I'd rather have the damage done. Not to mention that Frost Shield just is another circle for you to stand in and pay attention to. I have it somewhere, don't I? Where is it? Yeah, here it is. So the mechanics of Frost Shield would be like, you drop it there, and it actually brings your base crit chance up, which is very nice, as well as providing a bunch of other defensive properties that Frost Shield has. Lets you just use that ES a little more effectively. This is probably what I would stick with before your crit chance is basically 100. My crit chance, actually, it's not, even with the spell crit up. With the Zealotry, I think, and power charges, it goes to 100%. Yeah, but even with this, like, it's not up. My crit needs to be a little bit better for me to be critting all the time. Not to mention that there's the increased critical strike chance against shocked enemies that you can use. And again, I was talking about maybe using Assassin's Mark instead of, what is it, Sniper's Mark as your curse to bring your crit chance up. Critting is very important. I haven't noticed a huge difference. The effective crit is somewhere in the 90% mark. Obviously, you want it to be 100, but just more flat damage on the Righteous Fire is what I've preferred now. But yeah, that's another choice you can make. I probably wouldn't recommend doing this until you're in a late game setup that is using Corrupted Soul, because otherwise the Righteous Fire is going to be a little weirder to do. Yeah, I'm just not familiar with any of that stuff. But yeah, my cast and damage taken support is a Molten Shell, a Sniper's Mark, and a Stone Golem. This is kind of wonky right now because the cast and damage taken has a huge multiplier for cost. So I don't actually think, with everything reserved, I don't think I actually have enough mana to proc everything. Let's see. That's 120 mana. That alone is going to use most of my mana up. Sniper's Mark. So what you might want to do is, instead of this, use Life Tap. Instead of the Stone Golem. Stone Golem's just like a little bit of regen that's up. I really should do that, honestly, now, because then my Sniper's Mark would and Molten Shell would be up more consistently. The Molten Shell doesn't cost that much. It's only 27, but I mean, 27 plus 120, that's 147. I have 137 mana, so it's either or that's proccing right now. It's actually really bad. I should be using Life Tap instead of the Stone Golem, especially because the cast and damage taken trigger is going to be capped out by the dex required for Sniper's Mark. Between this and slower proj, those will really be determining how much dex you need. I'm a little bit over, but between the ring here, it means I don't have to use the Alacrity node here that you would probably be using while leveling to keep your dex up. Both for Ice Bite, you don't really need, and you don't really need it to be max level. It'll still give you the frenzies and utility, and Onslaught is pretty low. Precision is another one that you might, between this Precision and Sniper's Mark, you're going to need to see how much dex you have, and that'll determine what level you keep the cast when damage taken on. You probably should pump this up a couple more, and again, replace this with Life Tap. But yeah, beyond that, that's pretty much the skill gem links. I guess we'll go over the tree real quick, just to show. It's basically a copy of the Garotha did a Spark Inquisitor as well as DS Lily. I kind of took that as inspiration and just kind of went more of a softcore mode with it, taking the crit stuff here, going up through here, crit over here. You might actually not need this whole section over here. You could drop this and go into a cluster jewel. I would probably go into this one for armor, although you are close to this one with the elemental damage. But again, this was a league start. I didn't want to spend a bunch on cluster jewels, stuff like that. So yeah, you basically start, you go up here, I pretty much rushed towards elemental overload because you get good lightning damage nodes and cast speed nodes here, as well as some life and LE res, and you go over here. And I kind of went down here for elemental mastery. It's pretty nice. And then Iron Will is like a decent bonus. We don't have a lot of strength, but even just a little bit does boost the skill gem a bunch. Something a little awkward is that because we are using like a lot of stuff, I actually go for Anointed Flesh and while leveling, and even after, I do have Brine King, which means I have reduced chill effect and I cannot be frozen. So instead of this one, I take the reduced shock effect, and duration of all elements is just nice. It just makes it so that like when you're popping strong boxes and stuff, you don't get frozen and killed and whatever. Because we're using stuff in this area, this is normally where you'd use a corrupted soul gem for a lot of stuff, but I had to go down here. Kind of awkward because I was using the armor nodes here as well as the determination reservation efficiency. Again, depending on what you do, what auras you want to use, you might have to move it around. And before you have corrupted soul, glorious vanity, it's not really going to be an issue for you. But yeah, you could fill out the life wheel. If you use a shield, there's a lot of block. There's a shield stuff. Like this is a good block wheel. You get, where is it? That's for staff, but there's a spell block here. There's Arcane Guarding is over here, and then you're also by Arcane Sanctuary, which is pretty decent. If you wanted a more tanky setup, which you very well could do, I just ended up getting 2 daggers, which determined, I was going full softcore, gonna focus on damage. I was down in these, but I dropped them for pushing into the armor nodes and then also fitting in Corrupted Soul after I got it. Things like that. And then also I wasn't into like this cluster until very late because you're not crit until much later. You'll be leveling as elemental overload for the vast majority, well up until your Uber lab. I guess we should go over that interaction right now because it is at a premium right now. Inevitable Judgment. For years people have told me this is a bad node. It's better to use your exposure skills and run penetration in your links and get penetration sources, because if you over penetrate, then you're doing more damage. And now arch nemesis modifiers, which give enemies like 100 resistance and then like plus 10 max res, are just around. So you'll very much notice while you're leveling that if there's a Stormweaver or a Lightning Touched, I don't know, whatever the name is, that you're not 3-shotting that mob. You're standing there and shooting a dozen balls, if not more, because the resistance is that much of a difference. So Inquisitor not only can ignore all the lightning resistance that's on it, but once you convert to cold with Call of the Brotherhood, can also ignore all the cold. So for pretty much, this applies to any multi-element setup or just any pure elemental setup where you don't want to bother with a what is it called, exposure skill like Wave of Conviction or Frostbomb, things of that nature, or any sort of exposure that you can get from other sources. You don't need it because you just ignore it. You bring the resistances to 0 and you penetrate 10% when you don't crit, but you'll be critting ideally. You're expecting to crit multiplier, you're a crit build, you have a bunch of sources of crit as an Inquisitor, like per chance of strength or intelligence, that's 211% increased crit chance. For me as it stands right now, which it's not 100%, but I could get slightly better gear and stuff. But yeah, you're definitely gonna want to take a look at Inquisitor for this node, unless they make some changes to the ways, just for consistency, for mapping against rares and stuff like that. There will be some that are just like, damn, you're not damaging this as much as you feel like you should be, and that's why. Okay, there's some cast speed over here too. Crit multi, yeah. Tree's very basic. It doesn't have cluster jewels, like I said before, because I wanted to start on a budget league start. This is a nice spot for an anatomical knowledge that I dropped for myself. Just we get a lot of int here. Normally Witch does this, but this is like around 200 life. Yeah, I was wanting for life while I was upgrading my gear through the maps and stuff like that. What else? I guess let's go over the gear itself now. Oops, I'll go back there. It's scary. I guess we'll start with the Carcass Jack, which is not necessary. Find a corrupted 6 link with these colors. Find whatever you can. I'm going to work on crafting a much better chest than this. There's probably crazy stuff that's available with the Sentinel recombinators now. But yeah, Carcass Jack is kind of like a nice middling point where it gives you some resistances, some life, and some area damage and area of effect. I don't think the area damage works for ball lightning for some reason. I don't know if it counts as like doing damage in an area rather than ticking monsters for a tick of damage in an area. I don't know. I'm not a ball lightning scientist. There's like a whole POB add-on if you want to calculate your DPS with ball lightning, which I invite you to do with the POB. I'll have linked in the description here. I don't really care. Ball lightning, it just shreds shit as far as I'm concerned, and it's very satisfying sort of playstyle. The gloves are whatever, you know, get an armor base to boost your armor, I would say instead. It's harder to color, but you'll get around it, you'll figure it out. You could do an armor ES base if you're going to use this here. Yeah, none of the... Actually, I was looking into maybe Elder Gloves, because then you could make this a 5-link with like global chance to blind and then blind on hit for... to make your Orbostorms a 5-link with blind and stuff, but I don't know if that's really necessary. Could be nice, but I mean nowadays the 2 implicits you can get from the Eater and the Exarch are probably going to be way better. Like extinguish enemies on hit is pretty cool. 15% they can't inflict ailments. I guess that's cool. Obviously impale on hit with attacks we're not using. Boots or whatever, I got decent regen and res and 30 move speed. You can do way better than this. These days also have a funny name, Rage League. That's a funny name to me. And movement speed on the implicit is always nice. The helmet is pretty cool because that's where you get probably what will be the one you want to use, the enchant, the extra projectile. That makes it so that you have more coverage. Without the helmet, you still have a decent bit of area of effect, but I don't know if it's really going to be, like, you might want to run pinpoint while you're leveling as well. That's what I did. I have to check the earlier videos on this channel while I was leveling with it. The extra projectiles, as you can see, if you're aiming further away, they're kind of tight, but if you aim like close to you, they kind of spread out nicely. And so pretty much everything in this area and this area, I don't know, it makes a nice cone of damage, where pinpoint might be overkill. And I certainly wouldn't use something like GMP or LMP, just because pinpoint would give you just more of a flexible sort of like, okay, you can clear in the first cast, and then it goes down. Do I have a pinpoint so I can just... No, but I was leveling with pinpoint if you want to see the earlier, and I would recommend leveling with it before you get the helm enchant. If you can't get it, then maybe you would use that instead of... I guess Spell Echo, but Spell Echo feels pretty good once you have a lot of cast speed. And Spell Echo is actually important because each of those, not the 2 within the same cast, but the repeated cast, they can each tick for damage. So it's actually kind of like shotgunning, so to speak. That's why the damage looks so good. But yeah, the helmet was, I just bought the base, and I crafted this with an essence. This has what, tier 1 defenses, tier 1 regen, tier 2 life. Good enough for me. Craft the res I need on it, and we're good to go. My necklace would ideally be in Ashes of the Stars, but they're like, God knows how much now. I don't have that much cash. This dropped for me, had good dex, great resistance, and most importantly, +1 to level of all lightning skill gems. +1 to gems you want to get in as many places as you can get, namely the amulet and your weapons, be they rune daggers, wands, or a shield. Probably a magic shield would be best. Yeah, I just crafted life on this, good to go. Fury bolts I mentioned before, just good to have. And then yeah, I think I bought this one. I bought both of my weapons for pretty lightning spell skill gems. The +1, that's really all you want while you're leveling. That can get you up until red maps about. And then you'll want something that's a little bit more well-rounded in terms of, you know, this has a very nice cast speed roll. Not even that good. I mean, it's only tier 3. And then I crafted crit chance for spells on this. And then this has a very good crit chance for spells, some flat lightning the spells, and +1. The implicits for global crit chance are very helpful. Could actually be better. On this one, it could be the 51 with the platinum Chris, but I bought this, and yeah, I think one of these was like, this one I think was like only like a couple chaos, which I thought was insane because it had tier 1 crit chance and lightning spell gems, and then I crafted spell damage on it. And then this one was more like 20 chaos, but I don't know. You can probably find within the first weekend, just keep an eye out. Or you can craft the +1 wands yourself. I don't exactly know how to do that. I'm kind of lazy and a softcore trade lit, so I just buy them. And whatever, it's fine. The ring is whatever. This just had good decks for me. Decent resistance, not great life. Fizz attack damage leeches mana is dead. I would try to annul that if I wanted to be brave. Can I actually take this off? Yeah. Again, Dex is going to be a pain point because I have 47 Dex on here, so I can't really replace that. I have to replace either. I'd like to replace both of them, but I'll need Dex on probably one, if not both. Otherwise, I'll have to spec into the Alacrity node here, which is kind of annoying. Kind of eats skill point. And yeah, the belt, I annulled this in I think the second video or third video I did on this. Pretty nice life roll. Strength belts serve as crit belts for Inquisitor when your strength is lower than your intelligence. Yeah, pretty basic. You know, all the gear is pretty basic. But let's get to the Call of the Brotherhood. Why convert some of your damage to cold damage? Well, cold as an ailment provides chill and freeze, which is fantastic defensively. Helps you just kind of get a little bit more leverage out of just the pure lightning damage that you'll be doing without having to run Herald of Ice. I did run it for a time when I was leveling because it helped with clear and stuff like that when I was really kind of wanting for it. But just converting some of your damage to cold, as you can see on the tooltip damage, up to, yeah, you can see we have the lightning damage and the cold damage there. It's just nice to have. And again, like I said, Inquisitor can take advantage of it in a very nice way where you're just, you know, most elemental setups, converting half of your damage to something else means that you're not taking advantage of all your skill tree, your exposure isn't as effective, a lot of things like that. Inquisitor doesn't have that problem. You kind of just slap this on. This is the only required unique, I would say, for the build, but even then, not really. It's just really nice to have, and Inquisitor can take full effect of it by just slapping it on. Doesn't have fantastic stats beyond that. I mean, just a bit of res, increased lightning damage, mana regen is okay, and 100% chance to shock against frozen enemies is kind of whatever. If you're hitting something that you're not shocking, it's probably not frozen anyway, for whatever reason. Although some stuff has immunity to shock now, immunity to freeze and chill or whatever. And the new immunities are kind of weird, and you get to kind of ignore a lot of them with Inevitable Judgment. I think a lot of people have had some pain points on a number of builds that we just kind of have breezed on by once we were crit and we were just ignoring all the resistances. Felt pretty fantastic. Let's go over the what are these? Flasks. Increased recovery rate, immunity corrupted blood, pretty standard. And then we have an auto flask setup that I'm okay with. It's kind of mixed up because I got armor on my diamond flask, and then I got crit chance on my armor flask and stuff like that, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Quartz flask, I don't have to worry about popping these in maps, even though I do. I personally like to have it so that it uses when charges reach full, so that when it does pop automatically, even if you don't kill a single monster, for that you also get a manual pop that you can use for you know, moving through the map, like a dead zone of a map or whatever. It's just nice to have. But yeah, this one I kept for when you hit a rare or unique enemy, just because that's just a little bit, you know, that's when you really want to be critting, because once you have enough damage on the gem, even once you have a level 20 gem, really, I mean, you'll be destroying packs even all the way up into red maps. And yeah, phasing is just nice to have because stuff gets hairy once you get into a pretty crazy Atlas tree. I'm not going to go into that. I want to keep this purely about the build itself. And yeah, Granite Flask could probably be a bit better rolled. and I'm not working with the gain charges when you're hit on all of them, just because we're not getting hit that much, ideally. We're at a projectile build, and we don't really have that much straight up mitigation besides the +1 to max res on that we get from here, Anointed Flesh, which you might not even need if you really don't care that much. It might be better to go into Asylum, especially because Chaos res is going to be more of an issue for you if you go low life without anything like that. I guess I didn't really talk about Corrupted Soul, but that's just because I feel like it's obvious at this point. If you're an Inquisitor, you're going to want to get Corrupted Soul in your build 9 times out of 10. It's just fantastic. It helps you take advantage of your life regen that normally is just kind of sitting there when you're really in danger. The energy shield, you know, it just splits damage between both, and then you regen both. I would say a good... our life regen isn't that great. Now, where's our... with Vitality... That's still pretty good. And then I actually do have Recover 2% while moving on one of the life nodes around here. Yeah, regen 2% while moving, which you don't need. And the Vitality mana reservation I was able to drop out of, I don't know, again, I was kind of bouncing around my auras between my life cost and the mana costs and stuff like that. But yeah, I would aim for about 1,000 regen per second. As you can see, it's mirrored in your energy shield regen per second. And you basically are just tanky by virtue of immediately regenerating any damage that you'll take. And yeah, that's Inquisitor. That's why I've run Inquisitor as my starter build for... yeah, like years now. I think that I've really fell in love in Metamorph League when I did Blade Vortex Inquisitor, and a lot of the same things that we're applying then apply now, like Metamorphs, especially now, probably have ridiculous elemental resistances that we just completely ignore. And yeah, I'll have a POB up in the bottom of the description. You can go over if you have any questions or have any suggestions for the build as it stands. I wouldn't consider this 100% finalized, but for my purposes right now, I killed Maven and Uber Elder and the new buffed dudes, and I killed Cortex and all this stuff. Where was the I had this, right? Yeah, this was the last stream I did. Finished up my Pantheon stuff. Maybe we'll go over the Pantheon. I went for Brine King and Shikari just because now that I'm low life, I'm a little bit scared of chaos damage, and I don't have that much chaos res. And yeah, just being stunned and getting caught up on maps and stuff, I got tired of that shit. So we went for Brine King, fully upgraded, and Soul of Shikari. Killed Shaper, killed Cyrus, killed Uber Elder. None of the Uber stuff yet. I'm kind of scared to spec into that stuff and then like actually put this build up against you know, the really scary new stuff. But for a week into the league, having my entire atlas filled up and most of the skill points, doesn't get much better than that for me. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any more questions or suggestions. I think I'm going to do... I do have my Magic Finder already rolled over here, which is doing some stuff, but it's a little bit tricky this league now with, again, those resistances and just weird modifiers on rare monsters that aren't that great for you, but are way better, you know, to steal. They aren't that great to steal, rather, with Inspired Learning and things like that, or Headhunter. But yeah, maybe I'll go over... I'll probably do another video just kind of doing an overall Magic Find overview for this league, and then maybe I have one or two more little interesting build ideas that I'm gonna try and push this league, and beyond that, we'll see. Another great league. I kind of like Sentinel a lot. Sentinel's pretty fucking cool. It's ridiculous loot if your build can handle it. I hope you're popping these Sentinels and enjoying it as much as I am. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.